Real quick before I start this video, I want to address the recent growth on my channel. This channel from 8 videos alone, well, technically now 9, has been getting some insane growth that I would never have imagined possible. And we're nearing the 100 subscriber mark, and I want to do something special for that. And yes, it's going to be a movie review, but this time I'm going to record myself watching it. Now you may think that sounds pretty stupid, but I'm not going to record myself watching great movies like the Batman or Spider-Verse, because I could watch those any day of the week and it wouldn't make for an interesting video. Instead, I'm going to watch a horrendous movie. Now I haven't made up my mind, but I want to make this a special event for whenever we reach a certain subscriber number. I was thinking about doing one for the 50 subscriber mark, but I just didn't think about doing it. If I get to 100 subscribers after this video, my next video is going to be this special video, but I will probably be reviewing movies like Madam Web, Twilight, that fucking Spider-Man YouTube movie, or some Netflix movie, to be honest. Movies that are torturous to get through. Though I haven't really made up my mind on which movie I'll do, but if you guys have any suggestions on which bad movies I should review, just let me know, because I couldn't really think of anything special to do for 100 subscribers other than just torture myself for your guys' entertainment. But anyway, let's get back to the video.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Alright guys, so X-Men 97 just concluded yesterday, and I'll admit this show is pretty damn good. It's almost too good, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of my problem with it. First off, I think everybody is eternally grateful for the fact that this show finally showed us the X-Men in their fucking proper suits. The first X-Men piece of media I first saw were those movies that came out in the early 2000s, and I think it's fair to say that those movies kinda suck.
Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
I don't think those movies did a single thing better than this show does, but I'm just so grateful this TV show has some goddamn color to it. I also love the fact that this show made fun of the movies for showing us the X-Men in those black leather suits.
Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
And were you expecting yellow spandex? Yes, I was. It looks way better. One thing you'll notice is that pretty much every character is a much more significant upgrade from what you get from those Fox movies. Those movies barely have anything to do with one another. Magneto is a much more significant upgrade than what he was in the movies. And yes, Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen did a great job in those roles, but in this show, Magneto is a much more significant upgrade as an advocate for mutant life. The movies never did a good job in establishing prejudice and inequality for mutants, and I think it's because the Sentinels were not invented until Days of Future Past rolled around. It's like they finally realized, oh right, the thing that made the X-Men so interesting was the fact that they faced so much prejudice, but they still fought for the people that don't think of them as humans, if that makes sense. That's a much more interesting story, and whenever Magneto and eventually Rogue are shown that they want to kill the people who wrong them, it makes much more sense because the Sentinels are fucking killing a bunch of mutants. That's a good way to establish prejudice, but the movies put a huge disdain in people's mouths because the only thing those movies did was show the X-Men be bloodthirsty maniacs. But yeah, the X-Men are not bloodthirsty maniacs. Instead, you get a much better representation of these characters, most notably Ray Chase as Cyclops. And also AJ Lacasio as Gambit.
The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it.
Right
And yeah, characters like Storm, Cyclops, Rogue, Nightcrawler, and Gambit are a much more significant upgrade than what we got from those movies. And though unfortunately some of them die, their lines of dialogue consist of some of the hardest lines throughout this entire show.
To me, my X-Men.
That's fucking cold. I don't think I need to tell anyone how cold that is. Also, I'm finally glad that there's a show that consisted of fucking casting voice actors instead of just celebrities. We're currently in a time now where most movies and TV shows consist of the entire cast just being famous celebrities. And I mean no offense to these actors, and yes, a lot of celebrities can do a good job with the voice acting, but I fully appreciate that this show is full of just voice actors. I love all the different suits and designs. I wasn't a big fan of the retro animation style at first, but it kinda grew on me. I don't know, I was expecting another Spider-Verse style animated project. One thing I will say, that with the inclusion of various different X-Men from different parts of the world, at times it kinda gets hard to understand what they're saying, so much so that I had to continue watching the show with subtitles whenever people like Nightcrawler were introduced, but that's a small thing to complain about. The action in this show is ridiculous. I just made a review about Invincible, a show that at times has some pretty disappointing animation, and this show has none of that.
Don't! I surrender! Not.
Every single fight scene has amazing animation, and it keeps giving the spotlight to other characters. Like the Days of Future Past movie, I thought they were going to send Rogue back because that's how it was in the comics, but instead most of those movies revolve around Hugh Jackman, and though he does a good job, I would like to see other characters in action. Now I think I made my points clear. This show is a much better representation of these X-Men, but one thing I really didn't like was the fact that Professor Charles Xavier is not present in this until like episode 4 or 5. Now I kinda do like that he's not in this show as much, because he could just resolve everything in like 5 seconds. There would be no conflict present if most characters were at their full capacity here. Though I've been praising so many characters like Jean and Cyclops, but one thing I kinda don't like is the plot twist of Jean Grey. I'm not going to spoil this, but if you haven't watched this show yet, just skip to this time code if you don't want this part spoiled for you. Now the plotline of Cyclops and Jean Grey having a baby that will soon be Cable, it's kinda messed up because we're shown this vampire dude, whose name I can't remember, made a clone of Jean Grey, and the real Jean Grey is not the Jean Grey that Cyclops had a baby with. So that pregnant Jean Grey is just a clone from the real one, and the real one's memories are completely fragmented, like they're scattered. That's so fucked up, but I honestly kinda like it. Because this whole time Jean was nagging Scott, asking him to just simply like live a life away from the X-Men. They want to step down from being the leaders of the team, and though that makes sense, it really doesn't sit right with me because yes, I can understand that, but you two are the leaders of the X-Men. Like, you can't exactly leave, especially when Genosha is soon to be leveled and whenever people like Officer Trask are still out and about. The show is pretty damn good, honestly. I'm just sick and tired of seeing so many projects of superheroes being fucking boring as hell. I always said that most comic book characters get shitty representation because the people who make most of these movies focus on the wrong shit. Most of those X-Men movies consisted of them fighting each other instead of fighting with each other. Overall, this show's pretty good. I don't have anything to complain about other than the fact that this show makes those other movies look a lot shittier in comparison. 10 out of 10, off to a good start.
Best defense is a good offense.